The outer gate stood at the edge of the known galaxy, where starlight grew thin and the void pressed close. It was a place of exile, where the Galactic Coalition sent those too dangerous to kill but too troublesome to keep. Captain Mira Solon arrived in chains, her uniform stripped of rank insignia, her name erased from every military record across 40 systems. She had committed the unforgivable sin. Mercy. The transport ship's hatch hissed open, and 2 Vraxian guards shoved her onto the frost-covered platform. The outer gate was nothing more than a monitoring station carved into a dead moon, its corridors silent except for the whisper of failing life support. Beyond its walls stretched the exclusion zone, a buffer between civilization and the unknown horrors that lurked in deep space. "You'll die here," one guard sneered, his chitinous faceplates clicking with satisfaction. Alone as humans deserve. Mira said nothing. She had learned that humans unsettled the galaxy not with words, but with what they did when words failed. The guards departed, and silence fell like a burial shroud. She spent her first week alone, cataloging the station's failing systems and meager supplies. The automated defense grid was barely functional. The communication array had been deliberately sabotaged. This wasn't exile. It was a death sentence disguised with bureaucratic efficiency. On the 8th day, she heard scratching at the outer airlock. Mira grabbed the only weapon available, a rusted maintenance tool, and approached cautiously. The airlock's viewport revealed 3 small figures huddled against the door. They were Red Fang cubs, barely past weaning age, their crimson fur matted with ice. Red Fangs were apex predators from the jungle moon of Cathara, creatures feared across the sector for their pack intelligence and ruthless hunting tactics. These cubs should have been with their clan, learning to kill. Instead, they were dying. Mira's hand hovered over the airlock release. Every protocol, every instinct trained into her screamed that opening that door meant death. Red Fangs tolerated no other species. They were monsters in the galaxy's nightmares. She opened the door anyway. The cubs tumbled inside whimpering, their 6 eyes wide with terror and exhaustion. The largest, a male she would later name Ro, tried to bare his teeth in warning but collapsed instead. The 2 smaller ones, Leary and Den, huddled against their brother, shivering. "All right," Mira whispered, holstering her makeshift weapon. "Let's see what we can do." She had been a medic before becoming a captain, before the war that consumed her humanity in the eyes of the Coalition. Her hands remembered what her heart had tried to forget: how to heal, how to care, how to see individuals instead of threats. The cubs had been separated from their clan during a skirmish with raiders. Left for dead, they had somehow tracked her biosignature across the frozen wasteland. Whether by instinct or desperation, they had chosen her. Over the following weeks, something impossible happened. Mira nursed them back to health with salvaged rations and improvised medicine. The cubs, in turn, began to trust. Ro would bring her small repairs he'd figured out with surprising mechanical intuition. Leary kept watch during Mira's sleep cycles, her senses far keener than any human technology. Den discovered a patch in the food synthesizer, code that increased output by 20%. They became a pack. The Coalition had banished Mira for refusing to execute, captured enemy soldiers, young, conscripts who had surrendered in good faith. She had seen their faces and recognized what the galaxy tried to forget, that mercy was not weakness, that compassion could exist even in war. Now in this forgotten corner of space, she understood why humans disturbed the galactic order so deeply. Other species saw the universe in hierarchies and absolutes. Humans saw possibilities. 3 months into her exile, the alarms screamed. A raider fleet had breached the exclusion zone. The very criminals the Coalition had failed to stop, the ones whose depredations made the outer gate necessary. They were heading for populated systems, and the only thing between them and millions of innocent lives was a broken station. 1 exiled human and 3 half-grown cubs. Mira stood before the defense console, her reflection ghostly in its cracked screen. She could hide. Let the raiders pass. It wasn't her responsibility anymore. But responsibility had never been about recognition. It had always been about choice. "Ro, Leary, Den," she called. The cubs appeared instantly, their bodies now strong, their eyes alert. "We're going to hold this gate. They won't pass while we stand." The cubs understood. Red Fangs were born knowing that some roads must be held, some lines must not be crossed. Together they worked with desperate efficiency. Mira rerouted every remaining system to the defense grid, creating a network of traps and kill zones. The Cubs used their natural abilities to set ambush points in the station's dark corridors. Their pack tactics adapted to close-quarters combat. When the raiders arrived, they expected an abandoned station. They found war. Mira fought from the command center, directing automated turrets and environmental hazards with surgical precision. The Cubs moved through the shadows like crimson death, their coordination perfect, their fury absolute. Raiders fell to claws and teeth, to explosive decompression, to the sheer stubborn refusal of beings who had chosen to stand. Hours blurred into chaos and gunfire. The station shook with impacts. Hull breaches bloomed like deadly flowers, but the line held. Finally, as dawn broke over the dead moon's horizon, the surviving raiders retreated. The outer gate stood intact, scarred but unbroken. Beyond it, the route to civilian space remained closed. Mira collapsed against the console, bleeding from a dozen wounds. Ro pressed against her side, his rumbling purr a vibration of shared survival. Leary and Den flanked them, watching the stars with Predator's patience. No reinforcements came. No recognition arrived. The Coalition's files still listed Captain Mira Solon as an exile, the outer gate as abandoned. But in the darkness between stars, a new story spread through back channels and whispered frequencies. A story of a human who stood when the galaxy commanded her to fall. Of Cubs who learned that loyalty transcended species. Of a road that no enemy could pass, guarded not by armies or authority, but by those who understood that some choices defined who you were, regardless of who was watching. The human had been banished to the outer gate, but she was not alone, and that made all the difference.